Imagine pulling into your driveway after a long day, only to find your elderly mom's prized rose garden ripped to shreds by a crew of landscapers. All because the neighborhood busybody decided your flowers were non-compliant with her made-up rules. But here's the kicker. That same HOA queen, with her perfect smile and ironclad bylaws, was about to have her empire crumble when her petty vendetta unearthed a multimillion-dollar scam she'd been running right under everyone's noses. Buckle up, folks, because this tale of suburban sabotage is about to expose how one whispered rumor snowballed into federal handcuffs. And trust me, the irony is deliciously brutal. My name's Alex Thompson, and I never thought I'd be the guy narrating a YouTube drama about how a simple backyard barbecue turned into a battlefield against the Oak Ridge Estates, HOA. We lived in this cookie-cutter suburb in suburban Virginia, where the houses all looked like they popped out of a catalog. Neat lawns, white picket fences, and that suffocating sense of community, enforced by endless newsletters about grass height and holiday decor limits. It was the kind of place where folks waved hello but whispered judgments behind closed doors. All thanks to the HOA's iron fist disguised as neighborly concern. I'd inherited the house from my late dad, a quiet mechanic who'd kept to himself, and now I shared it with my mom, Evelyn, a retired nurse in her 70s who found solace in her garden. Those roses weren't just plants. They were her therapy after years of hospital shifts, blooming in every color like a defiant splash against the neighborhood's beige uniformity. Enter Patricia Langford, the HOA president who'd clawed her way to the top 3 years ago on a platform of preserving property values and upholding standards. Picture a woman in her 50s, always in tailored pantsuits, clutching a tablet like it held the secrets to eternal suburbia, her voice dripping with that fopolite southern drawl that masked a core of pure control freak. "Oh, bless your heart," she'd say, but it always came with a side of judgment. Patricia wasn't just enforcing rules. She was the rules, micromanaging everything from mailbox colors to how many cars you could park in your own garage. And me? I was the guy who'd been labeled the troublemaker after a rumor started that I'd been hosting unauthorized gatherings. It was all bullshit. A single-family cookout where a few neighbors dropped by uninvited. But Patricia spun it into a tale of rowdy parties disrupting the peace. I kept quiet at first, figuring silence was smarter than stirring the pot. But inside, I was watching, noting every hypocritical move she made, like how her own yard had those tacky flamingo statues that violated her precious aesthetic guidelines. The trouble really ignited one crisp autumn afternoon when Patricia marched up to our front door, heels clicking on the pavement like tiny gunshots. Mom was out back, kneeling in the dirt, pruning her roses with those worn gardening gloves that smelled of earth and memories. I opened the door, and there she was, tablet in hand, lips pursed in that signature mix of concern and condescension. "Mr. Thompson," she began, her voice all honeyed venom, "I'm afraid we've received multiple complaints about your mother's horticultural endeavors. Those roses are exceeding the approved plant height by at least 2 inches. And the colors? Well, they're not in harmony with the neighborhood palette. We can't have visual discord, now can we?" I stared at her, trying not to laugh at the absurdity. Palette? Patricia, they're flowers, not a paint swatch. Mom's had that garden for decades. It's grandfathered in under the original covenants. She tapped her tablet dramatically, pulling up some digital bylaw that looked like it was written by a robot on a power trip. "Oh, but standards evolve, dear. For the greater good. If we let one garden run wild, soon everyone's yard will look like a jungle. Think of the property values." Mom overheard and peeked around the corner, dirt smudged on her cheek, but she just smiled faintly and went back to her work. I bit my tongue. Patience, I reminded myself. But that night, as rumors spread on the neighborhood Facebook group about our unsightly overgrowth attracting pests, I started documenting. Screenshots, timestamps, everything. It didn't stop there. Patricia's campaign escalated like a bad sitcom plot, but with real stakes that made your blood boil while you chuckled at the sheer pettiness. A week later, a county code enforcement van pulled up, summoned by an anonymous tip that our garden was a health hazard. The inspector, a burly guy named Mike with a mustache that screamed 1980s cop show, scratched his head as he surveyed the blooming roses. "Ma'am," he said to Mom, who offered him a cup of tea like this was a social call. "The complaint says these plants are breeding grounds for rodents and disease." "But," They look pretty healthy to me. Patricia hovered at the property line, pretending to check her mailbox, but her eagle eyes missed nothing. Officer, she interjected, striding over with that authoritative clip-clop. As HOA president, I must insist on a thorough inspection. We have standards to maintain. It's for the community's well-being. Mike sighed, poked around a bit, and found zilch. No violations here, he muttered. But as he drove off, Patricia shot me a look that said this was far from over. That evening, the HOA newsletter arrived in our mailbox, featuring an anonymous article about rogue gardeners undermining communal harmony. Mom read it and chuckled softly. Honey, she's like a kid throwing a tantrum over someone else's toys. But I saw the hurt in her eyes, the whispers at the grocery store, the sidelong glances from neighbors she'd baked pies for. Still, I stayed silent, gathering intel, like how Patricia's tips always targeted folks who didn't kiss her ring. The single dad with the beat-up truck, the immigrant family with festive lights year-round. The absurdity ramped up when Patricia weaponized the rumor mill, turning our quiet life into a farce of false accusations. One morning, I woke to find a fine slapped on our door for unauthorized commercial activity. Apparently, Mom giving away extra roses to neighbors counted as operating a floral business without permits. I confronted Patricia at the next HOA meeting, held in the community center that smelled of stale coffee and forced civility. She sat at the head table, gavel in hand, surrounded by her cronies who nodded like bobbleheads. Mr. Thompson, she said, her smile tight as a drum, we're simply enforcing equity. If everyone starts distributing produce willy-nilly, where does it end? Chaos. And those rumors about your gatherings? Well, people talk when standards slip. I leaned in, keeping my voice even. Rumors you started, Patricia. What's next? Fining birds for singing off-key. The room tittered nervously, but she banged her gavel. Order. This is about community, not personal attacks. After the meeting, neighbors started calling old Mrs. Jenkins, whose vegetable patch had been deemed inconsistent, shared how Patricia had reported her for attracting wildlife. Carlos from down the street confessed his RV got tagged as a mobile eyesore after he refused to support her re-election. It was a pattern. Prime lots, vulnerable owners, all pushed out so Patricia could flip them to her real estate buddies for kickbacks. Mom and I pored over the docs that night, her hands steady despite the arthritis. She's building an empire on bullshit, I whispered. But empires fall when the foundation's rotten. As tensions boiled, Patricia's moves grew more ridiculous, each one a satirical jab at suburban tyranny that had us laughing through gritted teeth. She organized patrols, neighbors in golf carts cruising by, noting violations like our garden hose not being coiled to spec. One evening, she showed up unannounced with a measuring tape, stretching it across Mom's rose bushes while spouting nonsense. See? 3 inches over the limit. This could devalue the entire block. Mom, ever the saint, offered her a bloom. Take one, Patricia. Might brighten your day. Patricia recoiled like it was poison. I don't accept bribes, Evelyn. This is serious. Health codes, aesthetics order. But her voice cracked just a tad, fear flickering in her eyes as more neighbors whispered about her overreach. I stayed patient, digging deeper. Public records showed her real estate ties, suspended licenses in 2 states for similar scams. Then came the environmental whopper, a health department raid claiming our garden's organic matter was contaminating groundwater. Inspectors in hazmat gear tromped through, looking embarrassed as they sampled soil that tested purer than bottled water. This is overkill, one muttered. Patricia lurked nearby, tablet glowing. It's for safety. We can't risk epidemics from unchecked foliage. The report backfired spectacularly. Our garden was an eco-gem, while the HOA's manicured common areas were laced with chemical runoff from her approved pesticides. Your pond's a soup of toxins, the inspector told her privately, but word leaked. Neighbors chuckled at barbecues. Patricia's standards are poisoning us. Classic. Mom's quiet observation. She's digging her own grave, petal by petal. The climax hit like a thunderclap on a sunny day, Patricia's desperation turning her into a caricature of corruption that was equal parts infuriating and hilarious. It started with cops at dawn, lights flashing over a trespassing call. Turns out, Mom picking roses in her own yard was intimidating per Patricia's frantic 911. Officers, she huffed as they arrived. This woman is on communal easement, but our deeds proved otherwise. I filed a counter-report for false claims, body cams rolling as I detailed her harassment. That afternoon, Mrs. Jenkins dropped a bombshell envelope, HOA financials she'd borrowed, showing $5 million siphoned through fake vendors, Patricia's hubby running shell companies. She's been embezzling dues for years, Jenkins whispered. We tipped the feds anonymously. Patricia's mask shattered at an emergency meeting, her gavel pounding futilely as questions flew. Where's the money for the playground? Why no audits? She stammered. Misinformation from disgruntled elements. But her hubby flipped, wearing a wire that caught her plotting to plant evidence in our garage fake, stolen HOA tools. Security cams nabbed her at 3 a.m., cologne reeking as she stuffed junk under my car. Feds swooped in during her witness statement, arresting her mid-lie. Charges piled. Fraud, tampering, perjury. Her perp walk? Priceless. Orange jumpsuit clashing with her pearls. News crews capturing the fall of the suburban empress. In the aftermath, justice bloomed like Mom's roses, turning rage into righteous glee as the neighborhood healed from Patricia's reign. She got 15 years federal time, assets seized to fund a community garden trust, her mansion auctioned to a veteran family. Mom's plot became a teaching spot, kids learning botany while elders shared war stories against tyrants. New HOA transparent as glass, with audits and term limits inspired by Patricia's law. Ripples spread, state reforms, national headlines on HOA abuse. Mom, once slandered, now leads workshops on spotting scams. As for me, watching sunsets over thriving greenery, I reflect on how silence sharpened our strike. Bullies like Patricia thrive on fear, but patience exposes their farce. We turned her order into our freedom. Was Patricia just a misguided guardian of standards? Or was she always the real threat to the community? Yes or no? Drop your take below and let's debate who the true villains are in these HOA hellscapes.